Hello YouTube, how's it going? This is the crossover and I'm back with another video. Today is going to be another one of my 2022 draft scouting reports, and today we're going to be covering Wisconsin's Johnny Davis. So without any further delay, let's get straight into the video. Moving on to some stats regarding Johnny Davis, he is 19 years old, stands at about 6 feet 5 inches, weighs about 195 pounds, and has a 6 foot 8 inch wingspan. Regarding Johnny Davis's wingspan, there is a bit of a disclaimer as I couldn't find an exact measurement. There was a lot of different sites displaying a lot of different measurements. I saw from as small as 6'7" uh, of a wingspan all the way up to 6'11". Majority of the sites that I did see were between 6 feet 8 and 6 feet 9. So I landed on 6 feet 8 inches simply because when you watch him, I don't think he has like the largest wingspan in the world, but 6'8" seemed like the most realistic measurement for Johnny Davis's wingspan. However, moving on to his stats, this is his second year at the University of Wisconsin, where he is averaging 22.3 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 1.4 steals per game. He has an effective field goal percentage this year of 49.6, which is pretty solid. And he also is shooting 80.5% from the free throw line. I also wanted to include that he has a 26.1 three-point attempt rate, which means pretty much slightly over a quarter of his shots are coming from behind the arc, which kind of puts into perspective his shot chart. Most of his shots do come from the mid-range area, which we will talk about later on. However, he also does have a 33.8% usage rate, which ranks seventh amongst all the players in college basketball, which is extremely high, but he's that good of a player, and Wisconsin depends on him a lot to produce on the offensive end of the floor, and they are one of the better teams in the country, so all is good. I also included his FIBA stats, where he did participate with the U19 team, along with guys like Jaden Ivey, Chet Holmgren, Pat Baldwin, which we discussed in the previous video, where he did average a modest 4.1 points and 1.7 rebounds per game. He didn't play all that much, was kind of in the back end of the rotation. He only shot 32.1% from the field. However, he did shoot a pretty respectable 35.7% from the three-point line, which again kind of shows you his efficiency and where he was at over the summer and how impressive of a jump he did take this year as he's kind of exploded onto the scene to be one of college basketball's best players. Moving on to the strengths of Johnny Davis as a prospect, first up, we have the poise and pace that he plays with, specifically on the offensive side of the floor. Not saying that he doesn't play with poise and pace on the defensive side of the floor. We'll get to that in a second. But I really want to emphasize just how in control Johnny Davis is all the time, right? And this kind of goes into my second point, where he just gets to his spots on the court with ease. When you watch Johnny Davis play, teams are game planning for Johnny Davis. He's the best player on the court for Wisconsin. He's one of the best players in the country. He's going to be a top 10 pick this year. I'll just say that now. So teams are game planning for Johnny Davis. They double team him, they shade him, they hedge him on pick and rolls, and Johnny Davis is just so in control at all times. You never see him get rattled or try to hurry to a spot. No, Johnny Davis will sit there, dribble the ball, air it out if he has to. He will get to his spots with ease. He knows exactly where he wants to get to on the court at all times, and he gets there without much difficulty. And it's very rare to see a player be only 19 years old and be as patient and smart as a player as Johnny Davis is. And it's in my opinion, it's one of his biggest strengths and one of the reasons why I think his game is going to translate to the NBA level, just because he just is such a smart player and he just knows his strengths. He knows where he wants to get to on the court and he just knows how to get there, whether it be dribble, whether it be in a pick and roll situations where he'll kind of dribble the ball out a little bit, wait for the defender, wait for the big man that kind of came up to shade him on the pick and roll to kind of drop back to the big man, wait for the guard that was guarding him to come back onto him, and then he'll just go back on his way, go back to trying to get to that mid post spot that he loves so much, right around that elbow mid post spot. Those are really his two favorite spots on the court. He will get to those spots no matter what it takes, and he has a variety of different moves to get there. Not necessarily the flashiest of handles. We'll get to his handles in another part of the video, but he again, similar to a player like Jabari Smith, he knows his strengths, he knows his weaknesses. He's not going to try too much, and he doesn't have to, because his change of direction is just incredible to watch. I mean, and it's especially impressive when you take into account that Davis isn't the best of athletes. So the way he's able to just stop and make defenders fly by, or just get them with just stopping and then a real quick in and out move, and have defenders going the other way while he just pulls up, is just a thing of beauty to watch. And just watching Johnny Davis just score the ball overall on offense is just such a real treat. And all these points kind of play into my third point, which is his self creation skill set is just elite. It's amongst the best in college basketball. You can make an argument that he has the best scoring package in all of college basketball, and he has just such awesome feels on his pull ups, which I highlighted in my bullet points, and also he just does such a great job of creating separation on his jumps, on his pull-ups. He loves to do a little like lean into the defender and then do a little step back. He likes to step back to his left, specifically on like the left side of the court. But it's just incredible to watch, especially again when you take into account that he's not the best of athletes. What he's able to do, in terms of creating separation and his change of pace is just so incredible. And with that combined with just his feel, his IQ, his poise, Johnny Davis is going to have little difficulty translating his game over to the next level at the NBA level, of course. And again, he's just such a good decision maker. He very rarely turns the ball over. For a guy that has a 33.8% usage rate to only be averaging right around 2.5 turnovers per game, I'd say that's pretty great. And again, he's not the best playmaker, but he makes reads when he has to. He does a good job of feeding his big man. He's very patient, very, very in control player. He does a great job reading the floor, even though he's not necessarily the best of playmakers, right? He's not necessarily gonna wow you. He's not gonna be like a Trey Young or anything like that, make all these crazy passes, but he does do a great job of recognizing the attention that he draws from the defense, and he does a good job of hitting the open man, and sometimes he even sees plays before they happen. I remember watching him against Purdue, which I did include his highlights underneath this section of the video. But I remember against Purdue, he was in the right corner, and his man came, and the big man, I believe it was Edie if I'm not mistaken, came to double team him, and he just kind of dribbled it out. They were putting pressure on him. He's just dribbling it out, dribbling it out. He took like two dribbles, and then I believe, I forget who exactly it was, but his big man was just wide open underneath the basket, and he just dribbled it out and just let the paint kind of clear out as like all the other defenders on the court kind of went back to their man, and he just threw a bullet right down low to his center for an easy layup. And what, it's just very impressive to see that kind of play from Johnny Davis, especially when you take into account that he's not the best of play. He's not a great playmaker. That's not necessarily his role on the floor. His role on the floor is just to get buckets. And the fact that he does have the ability to make such sound reads like that and recognize, hey, the defense is worried about me. I can kind of leverage this. I don't necessarily have to score all the time. I can kind of feed my teammates, when they're open is just very impressive. And he just has such high IQ and feel overall on the offensive side of the floor that I believe is going to translate very well to the next level. That combined with just his touch and feel, on his pull-ups, whether he be stepping back, regular pull-ups, side steps, he just has such a soft touch on everything, especially around the rim, where he's able to, kind of convert his body, convert. It's very impressive. It's very impressive. He has such great body control around the rim, and he has a very soft touch on his floaters as well. He's really a three-level scorer at the college level, and I see that translating to the NBA level pretty well, just because of, again, his touch, his feel, his IQ, just how smart and skilled he is overall on the offensive side of the floor. But again, one of the reasons Johnny Davis has been skyrocketing up boards, at least in my opinion, is just how good of a defender he is. And the same IQ that he has on the offensive side of the ball translates right over to the defensive side of the ball. I have been so impressed watching Johnny Davis play. It's on the defensive side of the floor. It is absolutely incredible what he's able to do. He never loses sight of his man. Very rarely. I'm not going to say never. Very rarely does he lose sight of his man and just let him backdoor him. He does such a great job 99% of the time of being aware of where his man is, of where the ball is. And, he never gets backdoored or cutted, face cutted, nothing like that. Nothing, never, ever, ever. And that's just so impressive, again, of a player that's just so young, even if he might be a sophomore in college. And he just has such a high IQ, and he does a great job of helping. He has great hands off the ball, does a great job of picking off ball handlers when they attack, his side, the strong side. And he also does a great job coming off of help side and making stops as well. And he has great hands when helping off the ball. And as an on-ball defender, he is just amazing, just so disciplined. He only averages about 1.5 fouls per game, and he's very active defensively, which is incredibly impressive. He doesn't necessarily have his hands on the ball, on the defender, excuse me, too much. And, what really highlighted just how good of a defender he is was against Jaden Ivey for me. For the majority of the game, even though Jaden Ivey kind of took off a bit in the second half, he did have one play where he clearly beat Johnny Davis, but even then, it was off a handoff, I believe, at the top of the key from Zach Edey, where Jaden Ivey just kind of got downhill, and Johnny Davis didn't really have a chance. And since Jaden Ivey is, arguably one of the top five, if not one of the top three athlete in college basketball, he just kind of got to the rim, and Johnny Davis couldn't really keep up with it. Outside of that, Johnny Davis had an eye on Jaden Ivey at all times off the ball, and when Jaden Ivey had the ball, there was nothing he could do with Johnny Davis on him. Johnny Davis did a great job of not only not fouling, but just sliding and staying in front of Jaden Ivey, and that is incredibly impressive. As one of the we'll get to it in a bit, but one of the weaknesses I do have for Johnny Davis, I'll just say it now, is that he's just not the best athlete, and you just love to see him be able to stay in front of a guy in Jaden Ivey who his athleticism is going to be one of his biggest calling cards in the NBA. So to see Johnny Davis be able to stay in front of a player like that and really make an impact, bother him, and really Jaden Ivey wasn't scoring against Johnny Davis at all. Again, Jaden Ivey got hot in the second half. But Johnny Davis wasn't even necessarily guarding him on many of those possessions, and Johnny Davis just had him locked down, and that's just so impressive. You love to see the discipline that he plays with, the IQ that he displays off the ball as well, being able to make plays in passing lanes, being able to pick off ball handlers. It's just so impressive, and he also does a great job of grabbing rebounds and pushing the pace. Even though I feel that his rebounding is a bit overstated simply because most of the time his big men are doing the work, and then Johnny Davis just kind of comes and cleans it up. And again, I understand the value of having a guard who can come in and get those rebounds and push the pace. But again, it's not like Johnny Davis is out there banging with big men. Does he have the occasional rebound where he's banging with big men? Of course, but it's very rare to see that happen. At least in my opinion. So again, I think that him being able to come in and grab those uncontested rebounds is a good thing, but is it? I'm not going to necessarily say it's a strength, just because again they're mostly uncontested rebounds. But again, his discipline, his poise, his IQ as an off-ball defender, making sure where his man is at all times, not getting cutted on, being able to play passing lanes, pick off ball handlers, as well as just being such a disciplined on ball defender, very rarely fouling, does a great job moving his feet, just a high IQ player overall. And on the offensive side of the floor, just one of the best scorers in college basketball, one of the best, in my opinion, arguably the best mid-range scorer in all of college basketball, the way he's able to just get to his spots despite whatever defense his opponent throws at him, whether that be shading him, double teaming him, icing him on the pick and rolls, whatever it is. Johnny Davis does such a great job of just waiting out the defense and just getting to his spots. Never looks rattled. He's always playing at his own pace, and he's just such an elite three-way scorer at the college level. And he's just overall one of the best two-way players in my opinion in this class. Moving on to some of the concerns I have with Johnny Davis. First up is that he's not the most explosive player. I kind of touched on it before. He can struggle in some situations, as I stated with Jaden Ivey, where Jaden Ivey can just beat him to the basket on certain situations. Granted, it was on a handoff, and Johnny Davis did kind of have to get around 7'4" Zach Edey, but regardless, still. He wasn't able to recover, and against more NBA level athleticism, I could see him struggling from day one a bit. Just getting used to the speed of the game, and every prospect really has to adjust to the speed of the game. But I think it could be a little bit more of a process for Johnny Davis, just because he's not all that all that much. He's not all that explosive, right? He can definitely get up there, and he makes plays where you're like, okay, like where he's fast. Like, I'm not saying that Johnny Davis isn't an athlete or anything like that. He's just not all that explosive. He doesn't have like that quick twitch athleticism or nothing like that. So I could see him struggling a little bit, but again, just with his feel and his IQ and his poise, I'm sure he'll be fine from day one. Again, with most of my prospects that I talked about earlier in this process, how I stated these are more so just things to monitor rather than outright concerns. This kind of classifies as that with Johnny Davis, as he's not the best athlete, but he's just so skilled and has such a high IQ that I could see him that making up for it from day one at the NBA level. And another actual concern that I do have is that his pull-up three release is pretty low sometimes. It's not all the time, but especially from the top of the key, he can be a bit it could just be a bit low, and it just kind of gets me worried about NBA situations where it can get a lot, it can get contested a lot easier compared to the college level. And his form looks a lot better when he's sidestepping or just straight up pulling up like from the mid range rather than from behind the arc. It kind of looks like he's almost kind of throwing the ball sometimes when he shoots at the top of the key when pulling up from three. So I think if he could just work on his release, get it a bit higher from behind the arc, I think he should be fine. But again, his three ball is good enough as it is now. And most of the time, and again, as I stated, it can be low at sometimes. So I mean, it's not all the time. It's just sometimes, and it's just something that I felt like I had to mention, just something to monitor going into the NBA, and something that he could potentially work on in the offseason. Also, I think his handle does need some cleanup. There is times throughout the season where he's just lost the ball, just dribbling it in half court situations. And again, as I stated, that his poise and feel make up for his athleticism. I feel that his poise and feel also helps make up for some of his handle deficiencies. And as I stated, he doesn't have the best of handles, but he knows what he can and can't do. And I feel that with his lack of elite athleticism, I do feel that he needs to clean up his handle a bit and kind of improve it and kind of take it to the next step. Maybe work on just keeping it lower. There's times where he can just dribble a bit too high and just kind of lose his handle. I feel that he needs to just work on it being a little bit lower, and just work on some more moves. Nothing crazy, but just one or two extra moves that he just get to, at the NBA level, because his handle is good, it's solid, but it's nothing great. And I feel that again, with that lack of like elite upside, in terms of his athleticism, I do feel like his handle needs to be taken to the next level. And my final concern is just his free throw form. There's times where it's just pretty low, and his free throw percentage is solid. It's nothing like good or great or anything like that, but I feel like it could use some work. And I feel like he would be a better free throw shooter if his extension was a bit better with in terms of his guide hand. Sometimes it's kind of out there, and it's not necessarily, it doesn't get up all the way with his shooting hand. So I feel like if he were to get a more consistent form on his free throws, I feel like he could be a little bit more consistent from the free throw line. But again, these are just some concerns and some things that he just needs to clean up. Like, I think the athleticism is just something worth noting. That combined with his measurements not being terrific. He's listed at 6'5", but Jaden Ivey's listed at 6'4", and I just it was, I don't know. There were times when I saw them play where Jaden Ivey looked taller. There were other times where I'm like, no, Johnny Davis is taller. So I definitely don't think he's 6'5". I definitely put him right around 6'4". And that combined with his wingspan being a question, along with the lack of elite athleticism, I do feel like his handle needs to improve. I feel like he needs to fine tune some of the mechanics in his free throw shooting and his pull up three ball, because if his measurements aren't going to be that great and his athleticism isn't going to be at that top end where you like to see in most top 10 picks, then everything else needs to be up to par to make up for it, right? And it's definitely there in terms of his IQ on both sides of the floor. As I talked about, his two-way ability, being an amazing on-ball as well as off-ball defender, and combined, excuse me, with his three-way scoring ability. I feel like fine tuning some of his mechanics, in terms of his pull up three ball and his free throw, along with cleaning up his handle, will definitely help shore up that he has a day one success at the NBA level. However, with his poise, again, his IQ, just his feel, his touch on both sides of the floor, I expect Johnny Davis to not only be a top 10 pick, and despite his, rather lackluster athleticism, especially when he's being compared with Jaden Ivey. But outside of the athleticism and fine tuning some stuff along with his handle, I expect Johnny Davis not to be a top 10 pick, and be one of the better day one ready NBA rookies that this class has to offer. And I do believe he has long term star upside with with again his three-way scoring ability, and as well as his defensive prowess. I do feel like he can become a lower tier all-star. In my opinion, his ceiling is a lower tier all star. Do I believe that he's going to become like some superstar in the NBA? No. But being a lower tier All Star is nothing to laugh at. I see him being, at least a starter, or a decent starter from day one in the NBA, and I expect him to work his way up. The only way he doesn't translate to the NBA is just if the athleticism is just too much. The inconsistency in his mechanics kind of show themselves a lot more. Like if his mechanics just overall are a bit inconsistent, but I don't expect that to be the case. I do think Johnny Davis will turn out to be, a really good starter, a low end All Star at the prime of his career. And that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, Jaden Ivey is one of the better, or one of the best two-way players in this class, being such a great on-ball defender, not fouling all that much while staying in front of his man. Does a great job off ball as well. Always knowing where his man is, as well as being able to make plays in passing lanes and pluck ball handlers. And on the offensive side of the floor, what is their state? I mean, he's one of the best scorers in all of college basketball, has such a heavy usage, has such a burden to carry for his Wisconsin team, and he does such a great job at handling it. He's one of the best three-way scorers in college basketball, has displays soft touch around the rim, has a knack for finishing, being able to contort his body to adjust to the defender. Does a great job of getting to his spots at the mid-range, which is his best asset as a prospect, in my opinion. Just his poise, his IQ, his pace that he plays out. It's never wavering. He's always playing at his pace. The defense is always playing at his pace. Really, he just gets to where he wants to gets to. He never has a problem getting off his shots. His moves are many, especially in the mid range. He has a bag of moves to get to, and he gets to them very efficiently. And he's also a very solid shooter from behind the arc. I do believe that his release on some of his 3-point shots can improve, just getting them higher. Also, his free throw form is okay. I feel like his release, and specifically on his guide hand, needs to be elevated a bit, and his handles, I feel like, can tighten up to make up for his lack of elite athleticism compared to a player like Jaden Ivey. But outside of that, Johnny Davis, in my opinion, is going to be a top 10 pick in this year's draft, and I would love for really any team for any fan out there, you should be happy if Johnny Davis ends up with your team. Is going to be one of the better rookies from day one. And I believe his floor is going to be a solid starter, and I believe his ceiling to be a borderline all-star. So again, that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Johnny Davis. Do you guys think he'll be a starter? Do you guys think he'll be a bench player? Do you guys think he'll be an all-star, an all-NBA? Tell me what you guys think about Johnny Davis, how you guys view him in the comments, how you guys feel about him. But again, that's the end of the video, guys, and thank you so much for watching. Share it with a friend if you guys enjoy the video. But again, yeah, that's the end of the video, and peace, everybody.